There was a very interesting piece in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. In fact, it was on the front page yesterday by Tony Wright, a piece on Alfred Deakin, who is a architect of modern Australia and a white supremacist, James. Really?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because we're seeing more and more stories like this. We also saw the huge attack on the Walkley Awards, which are the sort of the lefty journalism awards, that were founded apparently by an oil executive who also wanted the white Australia policy to remain. The really interesting thing about all of this is that as we get closer and closer, the people who are really enthusiastic about the voice, not for reasons of Indigenous recognition, but for their own purposes of cultural revolution, because that's really what they're about, are going to start to tip their hands. We're going to see more and more pieces in places like The Age where they're essentially attacking and undermining the foundations of modern post-settlement Australia. That's exactly what a piece like this is designed to do. And, we saw this, we've seen this for the last 5, 10, even longer in the United States. We've seen this with the 1619 Project, which was the attempt to connect the American project for founding of liberty and all of that with slavery. We're doing the same thing here. Again, the point is to create this sense of original sin and illegitimacy for the modern Australian nation that can then only be reformed by a massive reformative process from the left that's going to, undo all the old power structures, as they use in their Marxist terminology, and then put themselves essentially in charge of a new set of institutions, which is what they've already been doing for decades through their march through academia and everything else.
And there's now pressure to change the name of Deakin University in Victoria. And this attack against Deakin appears to be led by his own grandchild, who's...
Yes.
What other claims to fame does this individual have other than having Deakin as a grandfather?
Well, it's Deakin's great grandson, and he's researched his great-grandfather, 3-time Prime Minister of this country, and found, surprise, surprise, a man born in 1856 was a man of his times. He had some attitudes that, judged by today's sensibilities, we would probably not endorse. This is the height of moral arrogance, where you go back trawling through history hundreds of years ago to find people who had attitudes that were common then, comparing them with modern sensibilities and then pronouncing them guilty, which is a lovely way of saying how morally enlightened we are. That's what this is really all about. It's moral preening at the expense of people long departed. The article said that Deakin actually did a lot of good for Indigenous people and was highly regarded by Indigenous people, but he had some attitudes that today we would probably not endorse.
They unearthed his old tweets. They unearthed Alfred Deakin's old tweets.
You know what?
Yeah.
He's probably heteronormative as well. Probably doesn't acknowledge that there's 150 genders.
Yes.
There's all sorts of problematic stuff with Deakin there.